Morning, everyone. I think we've got a few people joined. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes as people are filtering through. Share the slides anyway. There we go. So, chat. Hopefully, those people who've joined, you should be able to see the Q&A box. So feel free to drop some questions in there. Feel free to go and say hi. And we'll get started in a minute. Gio, I don't know if you can hear me. Do you know if chat's enabled for everyone? I'm not too sure. Okay. You happy, Darren? We'll get going now?
Yeah, all good for me.
Okay, good stuff. All right, we might have a few more people filter through, but yeah, as I said, you've got the chat facility on here, so ask questions as we go through. That would be great. But you should be able to go and see the slide that I'm sharing here. So welcome to the webinar. Do a bit of an introduction in a second, but fundamentally, we are here now to talk about unlocking the power of data intelligence for business. Now, a lot of topics that you will see start with AI. We've deliberately not started that conversation saying that this is an AI thing, but we are under no illusion that most organizations at the moment are pressured by that AI journey. And we're going to talk not about actually successful AI itself, but successful AI implementation from a preparation standpoint of how we get there. So if you indulge me just for a few minutes, I'm going to go and talk a little bit about the perspective of myself and Cybit, and then we're going to hear from Darren Brunt from Qlik, who's going to go and show you really, as I sow the seeds of the problem, one possible outcome in terms of that solution. Okay. So just a little bit about me, but I'm the CTO of Cybit, so I think most people on the call will know me, will have met me before. But I've worked in this space now. I was just thinking about before. This is my 26th year working with data. I'm probably around 20 years working with AI, which obviously doesn't feel like a technology that's that old, but obviously it is. It carries on. It's decades and decades old. So who are we from a Cybit perspective? So we are a specialist technology solution provider. So we will deliver services, we'll deliver solutions for organizations around AI, cybersecurity, cloud, modern workspace, when really what we're doing is trying to go and augment productivity of people into business. We talk about this mantra of predict, protect, and perform. So really what we're doing is anticipating risk and covering opportunities within organizations. We're doing that securely and we're doing that responsibly as well. And that is then optimizing operations and also user performance within business. So rather than looking at it from a technical and an IT perspective, we're looking at it from a people performance perspective. So the AI reality gap. So we've seen that 30% of generative AI projects are to be abandoned after that proof of concept stage by the end of this year. Now, some of you might think that's not actually that many. We may expect there to be more, but that's projects that have been invested in by organizations where they are not even going to get out of that proof of concept stage within the next, 6-7 months. There are some organizations, when you look at people like Forrester, look at Gartner, they can anticipate that complete failure of AI, maybe over that period of time, can be as high as 80%. So effectively, we're still kind of an experimentation phase within AI, and there's a lot of reasons for that, which we'll cover. But data quality issues and a lack of alignment to business goals are the prime reasons for failures. And there's just this quote at the bottom that these aren't just technology failures. It is significant investments of time wasted, resources, and organizational confidence that ends up being really, really impacted. So the current landscape in stats. So this is from the UK government. So when they put together the last budget, they did a big deep dive on AI skills within the UK and about business adoption. So we know that 21% of UK organisations that the government had sight of have embedded AI in operations, and that can be large-scale AI or just AI embedded in tools. So AI is here and people are using it, but 46% of those organisations are looking to expand the AI usage. So they've seen that the adoption is good, they've seen that the results are good, and they want to go further. 94% of UK businesses expect to increase their spending on data readiness. So that is the bit way before AI, and sometimes that readiness might not even result in AI type processes. But we know that 94% of organizations do have genuinely a problem when it comes to their readiness, the data quality, etc. This is an interesting one that I've been talking about for years in terms of what big data means to people, because big data often means lots of data. In actual fact, big data really means lots of data sources, and that's proven by this stat that 72% of UK organisations collect data from over 100 sources of information every single day. 51% say that cost is the biggest obstacle to adopting AI. And that's not necessarily the cost of the AI tooling or AI skilling or AI resources, but that's that whole process of actually getting to AI in the first place, including the data quality. We know there's a skill shortage as well. So what is the foundation problem? So most organizations do approach AI backwards. So they will start with the big exciting technology. And there's no doubt that ChatGPT is a big cause of this. Really exciting technology. We see possibility. We start with how do we leverage this? But they don't actually look at the AI ready data. So according to Enterprise Strategy Group, this is the respondents that they had to a survey, which was what are the main factors affecting data readiness? So one was data quality. I have never ever seen a data project where people have not complained about the quality of their data. A lot of organizations then say, so we cannot go forward with that. We're here to tell you actually that's why you should go forward. Because addressing data quality has lots of benefits. The second one is data integration. So how do we connect these things together? 100 data sources? That's quite complex to be able to go and say one of them is a prime source for potentially AI information or even management information for business. Data validity. So you might have data, you might be able to access it, it might be very well formed, but is it right? Most organizations who are over, let's say, 5 or 6 years old are going to evolve processes to the point where actually their data just does not work for them anymore as they've collected different types of data, or that data means something different to them as well. Accessibility. Years ago, accessibility was giving someone MS query access in Excel to accounts so that you could go and query something from a database. What we need to be able to do now is give governed information to people who can then consume that and make value out of that. Yeah, data has no value itself. It's about people interpreting the value. We've got to make it accessible to people. And then the last one, which surprises me that it's only 31% of people say this, but it's organizational culture. The optimist in me suggests that maybe that in the boardroom, the culture is changing to be a lot more receptive to data as being an important part of their organization. But I suspect there's still a lot that don't. So the 6 principles of AI-ready data. So I won't go through all of these, but ultimately we are looking at making sure that this information is diverse. What does that mean? Well, we know about bias. So if we have information which is where we're trying to actually go and change a culture within an organization and do things in a different way, then actually historical data is already tainted with that bias of how you've done things in the past. And when we talk about bias within data and within AI, we do always think about the kind of social type of bias. So when it comes to things like race and gender and sexuality and things like that, they're the things that we see as societal issues in terms of bias. But in actual fact, one of the things I see quite a lot is that people are not using bias in the right way. So for instance, a lot of people using GPTs and copilots and things like that are saying, let's go and do bid writing based on this AI capability. And they're pointing these LLMs or the GPTs, they're pointing them at a data source which fundamentally is their old bids. But the fact that it's completely unbiased is actually a problem there, because they're now writing new bids based on information that not only won them the bid, but lost them the bid as well. So we need to understand what information is pertinent to how we want to go and run this in future. And of course, we need to make sure that the information in the past is not biased to outdated processes, different ways of working that we want to go and experience in the future. Timely, very, very important. We need to make sure that if we've got a fast-moving business with lots of transactional information, we need to make sure that the information that we've got flowing through to this is representative of the business state now, especially if we're looking at things like retail, distribution, where actually stock levels, patterns within stock management could be changing all the time. Within healthcare as well, we don't want to be going and running this with information that's 3 months out, when actually we might see some real seasonality in terms of patterns. So therefore, we need to be able to get up-to-date information as well. Accuracy is a given. Secure as well. AI does bring a different layer of fear and threat when it comes to your data. And one of the biggest concerns really is being able to release information from an organization into an online source that could use that to potentially train its own model. You hear lots of horror stories of authors where they actually search within a GPT around prose that they've written, and effectively you will get something like ChatGPT will just return the entire book that they've written. So evidencing that their information is being used to go and train that. Now that's possibly a problem when the LLMs were first set up, but as you then use that system, you have the capability to go and effectively breach your own information to these systems. So we need to make sure that what we're using is not only robust, that it's not going to abuse our information, but also we need to make sure that we are not sharing information in there through anonymization, pseudo-anonymization processes, etc. Discoverable, so we do need to be able to go and get access to that data, and we'll talk a little bit about that as I hand over to Darren as well. And consumable, so there's no point in having a great AI model, this fantastic thing that is going to be giving us brilliant suggestions about our business and how we can move forward, but fundamentally we don't actually have that aligned to data that's coming in continuously, updating it, giving us constant predictions, and being able to go and get that out and consume it within the business. All right. I thought it was a really good quote actually from Michael Stonebreaker. So he was a Turing Award winner, so definitely knows a thing or two about AI, and specifically Gen AI, which is what the Turing Award is mostly about. But he says, without clean data or clean enough data, your data science is worthless. And the reason I like this quote is because he's realistic about the situation that we have. A lot of organizations will not move forward because they say we do not have clean data. And I think there's a really important phrase is clean enough data. So you need to be able to work on those kind of experimentations where your data is, where you do have gaps in the data, where the cleanliness is, so that you can actually start to address it over a period of time. But don't allow it to stop you from progress. So what is the path forward then? That's project lifecycle. So I think this is repeated by a lot of organizations, but this is our perspective. This will apply to a lot of AI projects, whether it is simply machine learning. And don't forget, machine learning, using simple projections and statistical analysis of what happened in the past to go and project forward, that is still a form of AI here. So don't think that everything is going to be, the answer is Gen AI. We're not developing this for ChatGPT and Anthropic and things like that. We are actually generating this conversation to be able to go and say how businesses use AI. And that is a lot of different ways to go and consume that data into algorithms that have been around for years. So making sure that we can apply this across all of those, we need to select that clear alignment. So we need to be able to go and say, this is the outcome that we're expecting here. That project has got to align to the business goals. And I think that that is probably one of the biggest areas that's missing with a lot of these kind of projects, because ultimately it ends up with a technical team playing with data and saying, look, this is a cool thing we can do. We get an output. But we need to make sure that our AI strategy and the life cycle of a project is aligned to the goal. When we're developing it, we need to make sure it's reusable. So playing with data and throwing things into Python and things like that, we've got to make sure that these are repeatable processes. Otherwise, when you go and sign this off at the end and say that's a robust process, then actually you bring in failure at the next stage when you try to do it again and again and again. So automation is really, really key. Evaluation, and Darren will come on to a little bit of this in a minute, but being able to go and measure your experimentation. So it's not good enough for us to just say, yes, this gives us an output, but actually, is it accurate? So can we rely on it? But also, can we measure the outputs in terms of the adoption, what the impact is to the business? The adoption itself, building trust in it. So being able to go and show that measured information allows people to go and build trust that actually this thing is working correctly, and then that ongoing management. So we need to make sure this thing, it's not done when it's released. It is the start of a life cycle. So we need to make sure we monitor it, we measure the performance of it, so in terms of accuracy and things like that, and conduct those audits as well. Okay. And this is great from Ginny Rometty, the former CEO of IBM, that key to success with AI is not just having the right data, but also asking the right questions. And that's key to that business alignment. So the benefits of that data maturity. So these are organizations who were surveyed around when they've put in those kind of those data practices and those principles that we talked about. When they've put those in place, what is the immediate return? Now, this is short-term tangible return. So 36% have reported a significant improvement on their response times. Okay, so this is when they put it into an operational setting. 36% have seen significantly improved customer satisfaction, obviously in most B2C type organizations, and 35% increased significantly improved productivity. Now, AI is meant to fix everything within the world, so you'd X or Y, they are 90%, things like that. I think they are still very, very good numbers to go and show a real world impact in a very, very short time frame. But we also know that cloud modernization is a critical enabler. A lot of people are doing AI on premise, and there's good reason for doing that. But when we do look at enablement of these projects to go further, faster, to be more streamlined, to have a low cost approach on it, we know that this is a really big, important platform for AI. So 35% of UK organizations currently fully cloud-based solutions when they're within AI. So we've still got a long way to go and move these from on-premise to cloud-based systems. But we do know that we're getting scalability. We've got the integration capabilities, which you're going to see in a little while from Darren, and also that advanced tooling that we need for AI-ready data that we're just not going to have with fully on-prem solutions. So I'm going to hand over to Darren, and he can do an intro to himself better than I can. But I just wanted to leave you with this quote from Mike Capone, who's the CEO of Qlik. So he said this to the media a few times, but the AI race won't be won by creating the most sophisticated model. It will be won by embedding AI to business systems to generate tangible economic value. Global leadership in AI should be measured by its application, not just its invention. And I think that that is being echoed a lot by a lot of other technology leaders. Satya Nadella has been saying very, very similar wording around this. And I just think that that's a really good place for us to leave it and hand over to Darren.
All right, thank you, Rob. Thanks for the great introduction, and great to know that we're very well aligned in terms of understanding some of the challenges and some of the opportunity that AI represents to organizations. So let me just share my screen here a second and just confirm that you can see my screen. See my screen, Rob?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so good morning. My name's Darren Brunt, and I'm Director of Pre-Sales here at Qlik. I joined Qlik as part of the talent acquisition back in 2023, which has essentially helped Qlik broaden its portfolio to address a much wider set of business challenges and use cases than just analytics alone, which the brand is probably still best known for. As part of that journey, Qlik is now able to help organizations address their data strategy challenges, such as data ingestion, transformation, data quality, governance, and much more, as well as their analytics and AI ML use cases, but now from a single integrated platform. More of that a little later, but what this means is Qlik is now uniquely positioned to help organizations create this successful pathway for realizing the true data potential of their organization, as we mentioned before. So let me tell you a quick story about a simple equation that was presented as the first principle in a customer data strategy meeting recently, which I attended, that essentially captures the basis of today's conversation. So most organizations are looking to see how they can currently leverage AI to deliver business benefit and growth. Many of those organizations are focusing on AI as a hot priority in a somewhat standalone or isolated context, however, which can often lead to value disillusionment and ultimately failure. The issue is that without good foundation in disciplines, governance, and controls of the very data used in AI projects, then the odds are probably already stacked against you in terms of value creation and benefits realization. Too many organizations are fixated with driving AI initiatives at pace, but without the correct foundational support, which contributes to the low success rates you've just heard about and the high costs associated with such projects, which we can see in many of the analyst reports. Instead, we need to help organizations focus on the true priority, which is addressing the need for good, trustworthy data as the fuel to support successful analytics and AI initiatives. Sadly, for many organizations, the promise and potential of AI is simply too great to focus on such preparatory or foundational activities, which are seen as slowing down the time to potential value. But in reality, it's quite the opposite. Paradoxically, organizations that take the time to focus on establishing good data practices and disciplines from the outset are more likely to experience successful AI adoption, as we just heard, value realization, and the true business alignment. As in the case in this customer, they've decided to shift their focus, not in delivering AI, but in delivering a good data foundation to fuel their AI initiatives and plan for the future, not for recovery. To put this into context, and we see many numbers, but put this into context for AI initiatives. Poor data causes a knock-on effect throughout the AI adoption journey. We've heard much about it from Rob already. For example, this is another example. BCG estimates that only 26% of all AI projects realize their true value potential due to upstream issues with data quality, data accuracy, data timeliness, data completeness, and other data challenges, which compound the difficulties with AI solution development and perceived value. As you can see here, bad data in can create, bad bias in models and inaccurate predictions. It creates some then complexity in custom builds and ultimately, disillusionment in terms of the value that can potentially be created by these solutions. I don't want to kind of bombard you with even more numbers, but given that we understand the need for good rigor, measurement, and governance in data destined for AI projects, how can we help customers build a business case and priority for focusing on this readiness? Well, fortunately, Gartner has done much of that work for us here, as you can see. Through 2026, 30% of generative AI or Gen AI, that's one dialect of AI, projects will be abandoned after the proof of concept, as we've heard already, due to poor data quality, inadequate risk controls, and escalating costs or unclear business value. Through 2026, however, Gen AI will help organizations reduce manually intensive data management costs by up to 20% a year and enabling 4 times as many use cases. So the potential is there, the potential and the value is there. We just need to approach it in the right way. And finally, Gartner survey found that an average of 52% of AI projects will never make it into production. So much in alignment with the figures that Rob was sharing, but 39% of the participants indicating that data-related issues are one of the top 3 barriers to adoption, again, validated by what we saw in Rob's numbers earlier. So let's explore some of the possible factors for that failure and highlight areas that practitioners should focus on. So if anyone remembers the potential of failure in projects from Gartner, okay, well, I've done the math for you. Basically, if 52% failed, and only 48% are likely to be successful. And when we look at this funnel, this will help us understand some of the challenges around achieving this data readiness, for successful AI. At the top of the funnel, we have data integration. A foundational requirement. Issues such as siloed data sources, poorly structured data, and disparate formats create complexity, reducing the ability to access and use data effectively. Without seamless integration, AI initiatives struggle to even get off the ground. Moving down the funnel into data quality, this then emerges as the next major challenge. Poor data remediation, lack of diversity in data, we just heard about that, and bias, and data drift result in inaccuracies and inconsistencies that derail model reliability. No matter how advanced the AI algorithm is, its output is only as good as the input fed into it. Data governance addresses control and accountability over data. Problems like data ownership conflicts, missing lineage, and the absence of standardized definitions undermine trust in the data. And you'll hear me use that word trust much more as we move forwards. Governance issues amplify this risk and reduce the agility ultimately needed for AI success. Next, we encounter operational performance challenges. AI demands timely and scalable data processing. However, complexity across on-premise and cloud environments, latency, and real-time data limitations constrain AI's operational capabilities, diminishing its ability to deliver value at scale. Further down, data analytics and insights focus on the accessibility and usability of data. Unmonitored KPIs, unclear asset visibility, and inadequate reporting create blind spots for the business, limiting the organization's ability to extract actionable insights that iterate effectively. So the insights and the actions from those insights are ultimately where the value capture happens, of course. And finally, at the base of the funnel, we see organizational issues, a little bit like Rob's observation earlier, a little surprised to see it as low as it is, but it can be the root cause of many of the problems. A lack of single source of truth, inflexible data workflows, a misalignment between IT and business hinder collaboration and long-term successes. Each of these classification compounds as we move down the funnel, reducing the probability of our success by as much as 52%, as we've just heard. To overcome these, organizations must tackle these challenges holistically, treating data readiness as a strategic enabler of AI. But to enable to affect change, as we've already seen, measurement and monitoring of these key dimensions is critical. And this is where the dimensional aspects of the Qlik trust score that we'll see in a second, come into play to help organizations provide observability, measurement, and accuracy in their data and establishing successful foundations for AI projects. So how can we help? Many of you may not yet know that Qlik now delivers a complete end-to-end platform that allows our customers to address both sides of the customer equation we discussed earlier, namely providing the foundation necessary to better prepare, manage, and govern data for AI, while simplifying AI and ML adoption to help organizations succeed at leveraging the true potential of AI solutions. On the right-hand side is the prize. It's the prize of delivering data for a range of analytics, leveraging our unique associative engine, Answers, our generative AI solution where analytics meets intelligence, and the ability to action triggers and insights, providing suggestions or automating responses through workflows or agents coordinating together. So that's the prize that everyone is looking for. But on the left-hand side is all the complexity and the challenge in building the foundation to support these AI solutions to be accurate and effective. From dealing with the complexity of data ingestion and movement, through transforming, combining, and modeling data suitable for supporting business outcomes, to driving observability and measures in our data to enable us to instrument it and ultimately trust it. This is undoubtedly a complex challenge, but not where organizations are tending to focus their investments and priorities right now. So we've extended what Gartner has said about this discipline to align it more with our insights in Qlik customers, so we can articulate our point of view more accurately around data readiness. So we see data readiness for AI focusing on things like integrating, structuring, cleaning, documenting, and governing the data used in those projects to help accelerate and empower AI use cases. So really, our focus is not just on the prize at the end of this, but enabling organizations to focus on the foundational aspects of preparing their data and making it suitable for that success. So with so many challenges and obstacles to delivering successful business outcomes from data, be it analytics or AI, it's important to focus on some of the fundamentals to ensure you're building the right data foundation for your business to thrive on. Let's start with some basics. It's important to understand how we define and recognize quality and trust within our general lives today before we explore the relationship to data. Let's take a look at some definitions to help understand the differences and subtleties of each term. So quality is defined as the standard of something as measured against things of a similar kind, so a comparative measure, or measuring the degree of excellence of something. And we tend to use words like accuracy, safety, security, reliability to articulate our feelings of what we think quality represents. Taking that a step further, however, trust is more of an emotive aspect, something in our belief system where we believe in the reliability, truth, or the ability of something or something to do something which they advertise themselves being able to do. And we use words like authenticity, dependability, faith, and confidence to articulate how we articulate our concept of trust in our daily lives. But there's no doubt that there's a link between quality and trust, right? If you have something that is deemed of quality, then sometimes there's an implicit trust in that product, service, or capability. And once we have trust, ultimately, we have confidence. So let's take a look at how we assess quality and trust in our everyday lives, and look at how we assess that for the products and services we consumed. The British Standards Institute was founded in 1901 to help standardize engineering practices from a quality assurance and certification perspective, and is still very much at the forefront of the UK's national standards body. BSI built practices and certifications which are still recognized as a symbol of quality today in the form of the kite mark symbol. So we're very familiar with this concept, whether it be on toughened glass, whether it be on products and services that we see as a way of us recognizing the rigor that goes into the productionization process of these products or services. And finally, built on top of that quality aspect is the notion of verification, driven by both certification testing and social voting that we recognize today in the form of vendors such as Trustpilot, etc. So given our expectations in our everyday lives of quality and trust in the goods and services we consume, why don't we have the same expectations of the data that we consume? So I talk here about establishing the concept of a data kite mark, and apologies for my little graphic in the right-hand side. That's the best I could do. I'm not a graphic design artist, but think about the concept if there was a data kite mark. What might that represent, and what might be the constituent elements of that data kite mark? I'm not suggesting that this is necessarily exhaustive, but we look at the concept of a data kite mark, perhaps being bracketed into 4 key pillars here. One is observability, a kite mark that gives us instant insights and readability of what we're understanding about our data, and it has to be easy to use for everybody. From a measurability point of view, we need to be able to measure some key indicators, some key measures in that data, but they need to be understandable metrics and not data science projects in their own right. There needs to be an operational dimension of our measurement as well that gives us a sense of how well adopted or how well used data is within an organization. And ultimately, those measures need to be flexible. Different organizations may have different weights and balances around how they want to measure the data kite mark within their own organization. As the appetite for more and more real-time data and fast-moving businesses, is more prevalent, obviously the timeliness of this kite mark and its accuracy to support in-the-moment analysis is very, very relevant. So the whole process needs to be automated and repeatable, but also the ability to alert us to conditions or constraints that are being violated as a result of a change in our data. And finally, historization. We need to understand context. Is this good or bad based on the trajectory that we've been seeing over the last week, month, year, or whatever it might be that's appropriate to assess, kite mark for a particular data asset over time. And also, from that historization, let's understand any trends that might be occurring, within our data. So there's no doubt that the presence of a data kite mark would help drive confidence within an organization by providing these instant insights. But, so what if such a data kite mark existed? What might it look like? And what value might it bring to data providers and data consumers alike? What if you could understand data intelligence at a glance? Imagine a single pane of glass, maybe an intelligence cockpit, across each and every one of your data sets, which is automatically computed and surfaces a range of key intelligence attributes that enable you to measure and monitor the trustworthiness of your data. Well, here's one such example. So for example, each and every data set has a summary. What is it? How many rows does it have? How many fields does it have? It has descriptive metadata, helping people understand what the data represents, not just from a technical perspective, but also from a business and context perspective. It has some form of high-level measure that we understand ultimately what that represents to us. And so, here we're advertising something that we call the trust score in the Qlik platform. And the trust score is an aggregated analysis of various dimensional analysis of data across the dimensions that have already been mentioned that help us understand ultimately how trustworthy a data set is within your enterprise at any one time. It should also provide granular insights into information about each and every attribute within the data. What does the attribute represent? How well formed is the attribute? How compliant is the attribute with any particular technical or business rules being applied to it? At the top level, what is the data quality summary for this data asset, giving me insight as to where perhaps challenges might lie within this data set. We mentioned before the dimensional analyses, the ability to compound various metrics into this headline score that measure things like validity, completeness, accuracy, diversity, etc., etc. The ability to also configure and weight those to be relevant for your particular business needs. What happens if we had operational analysis, understanding where and how these data sets are being used across different processes within the business, who's engaging with the data, who's consuming it, and who's interacting with it. And finally, the ability to automate data classification to help us identify aspects of data from a privacy and security point of view, such as PII or SPII. Well, the reality is that data intelligence is a reality in the Qlik Cloud platform today. This is a screenshot from the Qlik Cloud platform. What if you could get data insights at a glance? Imagine automated profiling of each and every one of your data sets that help service key metrics, key analysis, and anomaly detection. Yet again, we can see here within the Qlik Cloud platform, we have attribute level profiling, helping us understand the data contained in each and every attribute. We have things like automated value frequency analysis, looking at top hits in terms of value sets within a particular attribute. We have range analysis, automatically assessing key statistical metrics like averages, means, and other key factors. And we also have the ability to identify anomaly detection. What look like outliers, in our data sets that might give us a sense of where we need to focus some of our remediation activities. Well, again, this is reality in Qlik Cloud today. And finally, I think we called it data validity earlier, but what about data integrity at a glance? Imagine the ability to apply a business context to your data, to check compliance with business rules and needs, scoring and highlighting issues automatically, and then providing you with the ability to drive remediation processes to repair or curate your data. So not just know what is good or bad data, but actually help you with driving the remediation process to address those challenges. So what happens if you had semantic classification of all of your data? So irrespective of the syntactic definition, the technical definition of your data, what if you had a semantic profiler running on your data to try and assess what the data actually represents? So here we can see an example of an attribute called borough in our data. That could have meant anything, but actually from the semantic determination, we figured out that the majority of this information looks like London boroughs, and therefore we can assess the validity based on the semantic implied class of London boroughs rather than the technical class, which may have just been text. Looking at data type compliance, once we've assessed the semantic determination of data, how compliant might that data be, with its inferred data type. So here we can see, for example, country, being an ISO code, and therefore what anomalies exist in our data, if indeed they are ISO codes, as opposed to a 2 or 3 digit textual field. And finally, what about business rule compliance? What if we can overlay specific business needs across this analysis? So here we can see an example of borough being a mandatory address attribute. And if it is mandatory, those little red check marks indicate that these are violations of the business rule, indicating that we're not compliant with the business need or rule. A very simple one here around a mandatory attribute, but highlighting the power of automated analysis and applying business rules on top of all of this to help you identify the gaps and challenges in your data. Again, this is reality within Qlik Cloud today. So now we've established the foundations for measuring, improving, and observing our data sets. How do we bridge that gap that typically exists in organizations today between the data producers, often in IT or the SMEs, and data consumers, typically business users looking for appropriate data to help solve business questions or drive decision-making processes? In today's data-driven world, there's a significant gap between those two communities, the data producers and consumers. Imagine you're a data consumer, like a business analyst in retail, trying to understand customer churn. You're navigating a maze of hurdles. It's often difficult to locate the exact data you need. Even when you find the data, accessing it and making sense of it can be challenging. It's also difficult to understand the data because there might be complexity or subject matter in that data and a lack of clarity around what different parts of the data mean, which can be confusing. These challenges necessitate reaching out to data producers for clarification, yet ownership of data sets within an organization is often not well defined. And data producers encounter their own challenges, such as gathering and ensuring the quality of any supplied data, or managing who can access the data and securing the data assets to ensure compliant consumption. And data producers must also understand how data will be used by consumers to create meaningful data models, which adds another layer of complexity for them. So this gap is real in many organizations between producers and consumers. But at Qlik, we believe that data products are the key to bridging the gap between data producers and consumers. Data products bring clear ownership whilst ensuring data quality and accountability. Producers can focus on delivering accurate and reliable data. Treating data as a product involves understanding user needs, improving usability, maintaining high standards, just like any successful product and associated production processes. By treating data consumers as customers, data products ensure better service and support, making it easier for users to make informed decisions. And on the consumer side, data products are tailored to specific business domains, ensuring relevance and value for different organizational processes and areas. They're easy to discover and use. Like a well-organized marketplace, data products are designed to be intuitively accessible with clear documentation, reducing the time and effort required to find and use the right data. And because data products are aligned with strategic business goals, they help provide actionable insights that drive true business success. So what is a data product? What's the anatomy of our data product? A data product is a set of discrete data sets related to a common purpose or need that have been through a thorough productionization process to ensure the data is trustworthy and reliable. When creating these data products, we seek to serve a specific objective, a specific activity, and a target audience. When we want to build a data product, we define quality rules to ensure the data corresponds to the business needs and constraints. We specify the business domain where the data has relevance. We deploy governance rules to comply with company or regulatory standards, and we set out service level objectives and consumption methods. It's a documented, meaningful set of data designed to serve one or more objectives. Of course, we don't start out with a sophisticated data product typically through adoption. We can start with something simple, for example, which could be composed of several related tables in a database, which would be well documented with an associated business glossary, quality rules, semantic types, and which would be available to a group of users for an analytical use case or purpose, for example. As maturity grows in the productionization process and more consumers embrace the concept, we can then look to introduce more and more complex data products. So going back to our simple equation at the start of this discussion, we can start to see why focusing on a data foundation is so important to the range of downstream use cases that will leverage this data, and how data products help manage accessibility and interoperability between data producers and data consumers. We can also start to see the value of the Qlik platform helping customers address these complex needs all from one industry-leading solution. So if we look at the data producers side of this equation once more, we're taking enterprise data, whether it be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. We put that data through an assessment process and a refinery process to build the data product using all the techniques that we've just talked about. And once the data product is available and accessible, we can then invite data consumers to engage with this data product. And whether that use case might be for traditional BI analytics and reporting, whether it might be to use data product, which is now a trusted set of data to train models, to help remove bias and challenges, or whether it might be to use a data product for additional context in RAG applications, retrieval augmented generation applications, to help provide business context to complex queries that we're firing at LLMs. It doesn't really matter. The concept here is that a data product is a reusable asset that could potentially be used across multiple use cases. And there are typically many personas within the data product ecosystem, as you can see from the diagram here. There's this notion of a data product platform where data products are created, managed, and discovered with multiple contributors within it. Within the platform, we have data product teams that create and manage data products, typically centralized or even federated across line of business. You then have the data platform team who would engineer the data product and build services to be consumed. Also, the governance team that defines the SLAs and policies for things like privacy or standardization. And finally, the data consumer that can discover and consume the data product with confidence to support a business goal or initiative. So what if there was a central data marketplace that consumers could easily browse and search to find data products aligned to their business needs or outcomes? What if you were able to search across this marketplace by business domain, by documentation or other tags associated with your data products? What if there was additional descriptive metadata that helped you identify what the data product represented and the ability to support drill down and drill through into that data product? What if data products leverage the same measurement and observability we saw previously at a dataset level, but now at an aggregate level with full fidelity and insight to help consumers leverage data products with confidence? So not just a data product level summary of the dimensional analysis, but also descriptive metadata that defines the product, additional documentation being available to help with the literacy and understanding of the product, the ability to understand the constituent elements of the data product. What other data sets or resources form this data product? What are their individual KPIs and quality metrics? Which domain are those individual elements surfaced from? Because they could be multi-domain across multi-domain and complex data products. And finally, what other operational metadata might be available on this data product before I decide to consume and use it? What if data product consumers could also leverage lineage to not only understand the origin and provenance of the constituent data sets, but also understand the current dependencies on the data product, giving insight to operational use and adoption? That would give me confidence that the data product is fit for purpose and is from a trusted source and the provenance associated with it, for example. So here at the center of our lineage, we see our data product. Upstream, we can see the data lineage, such as the data pipeline. Where are we surfacing information or sourcing information for our data product? Maybe from multiple sources, one source. Is it a trusted source, etc., etc.? And downstream, how do we understand the consumers of our data product? Here's an example where we see a downstream consumer, which is a Qlik Sense application, consuming this data product, giving us a sense of usability of the product and where it's used within the business today. And finally, context-based metadata that helps us again with additional information on wherever we are within this lineage and provenance understanding. So what if all these things were available to help organizations with this preparation of data sets and data products to support AI initiatives? Well, the reality is that they are all available within the Qlik solution today. So to wrap things up, I just wanted to summarize with how Qlik can help you and your organization build a trusted data foundation, which will help accelerate and enable successful adoption of your AI initiatives to support your business growth. Whether that's creating AI-ready data pipelines, where we're automating the ingestion and consumption of data from any kind of data resource, whether it be structured, unstructured, semi-structured, whether it be on-premise or in the cloud, whether it be a business application, a data platform, a lakehouse, or whatever it may be. What about the ability to enhance this data quality and build data products by all of this observability and measurement that comes with the trust score? And ultimately to help your organization enable AI-driven outcomes by providing the infrastructure and the methodology necessary to build data readiness and AI-ready data into your enterprise. Let me just finish up with this quote from Stuart Bond from IDC. as you can see, all the analysts agree that AI depends on data, and it's the accuracy, of that data that ultimately determines the outcome of your AI strategy and benefits. So, let's hopefully we've helped articulate that the focus here is not necessarily always on the prize, but on the preparation for ensuring the prize is relevant and valuable to the organization. So I've rambled on for quite some time. So let me open this back up to questions from the audience or whatever's in the Q&A panel. So Rob, I don't
Yeah,
know if we
thanks,
have
Darren. I've got
things in
access to
here.
that. So yeah, and I just wanted to go and add some takeaways from what you've spoken about there. So my big takeaways are around data quality. So we've talked about data quality being the big problem within AI projects, but I think that single pane of glass across a data set to understand quality, trust, and usage, I think that's really important. I know that there's some attendees in the on the call today where they have an enormous amount of data sets and they don't really know how well used they are. Sometimes, are they used? That's good to know. Are they used? Actually, that's terrifying because that shouldn't be used. And it's how do you actually go and manage that stuff? It's very difficult with a lot of platforms and systems to do it. I think lineage as well, we get a lot of people really leaning into that idea of lineage, the upstream, the downstream effect. We look at it from a governance perspective, but even just from a change management perspective, it's so important to understand where the impact is. You change this and everything breaks, you don't know why. But then the core integration capabilities as well. I think that between those three key aspects, I think we answer the question of the challenges that we set. But it dawns on me that this isn't just about preparation for AI. This is preparation for any analytics. If the output here was some simple reports that we're producing, all of this stands as well. AI is the big topic, but we're really preparing things in the right way. We've got a few questions I'll come on to. I just wanted to go and give people three kind of maybe some calls to action of what they can do about this next. So the first thing is in partnership with Qlik, we can actually offer an AI readiness assessment. So if you're really wanting to go, where are we on that journey, then we can do that. So I'd urge you to get in touch with us around AI readiness assessment. Happy to go talk you through what that looks like. Darren has teased what this platform can do, and it is much bigger than what we can go and do within a short webinar. So the next thing that I would employ you to do is reach out again, that we can go and do an in-depth demo of the platform end to end. I know that some of the people on the call are familiar with Qlik as a visualization tool. They're not familiar with all of this power that Talend has really added into the mix here. So please get in touch with us for that. And also engage with us around strategy. A lot of you will be saying we don't know where to go with this. We do see this all the time. And if not the fact that we're more capable than the average person at doing this, we are collecting all the stories from other people that are doing this as well. So we are a brilliant aggregator of these stories from other organizations to see where it works and where it doesn't work. Okay. To go into the questions. So we've got a question here around the longevity. So someone here, I don't know what platform that you're using, but 10 years of creating all of these data pipelines, data processes within other tools. That's a lot of effort to go and move into a platform like this. So where's the benefit versus the cost of moving to that?
Yeah, so I guess the opportunity here is not necessarily about applying the entire Qlik platform, to an existing organization. We always come across organizations who already made, investments in parts of this platform or create IP and other technologies. And the idea here is how can we help dovetail and leverage the best of what people have already, but actually create the actual end-to-end journey story that people are trying to get to with more ease and less pain than just using sticky back paper and plaster themselves, right? So we've seen the emergence of the data stack, people building complex data platforms from constituent pieces and parts, and we're now seeing organizations dismantle those stacks because of the complexity, because of the maintainability and the cost issues associated with them. But there still may be aspects of those stacks which are intrinsically locked into an intellectual property or operational processes. And in that case, we within the Qlik platform, we are able to, for example, assess all of your data assets, but not necessarily, use our data pipelines to create those assets, for example. So the idea here is that, there are aspects of the platform that can be used independently of the entire platform, but still delivering insights and value to organizations that have already made some investments. For example, we have customers who use our data readiness aspects of the platform, but may not use Qlik for analytics, and vice versa. So there's all sorts of blends and interoperability here, where there's still potentially a value proposition to play, even if an organization has made significant existing investments. So for an organization that's maybe, I know, got hundreds of existing processes running in Alteryx, for example, we're not necessarily saying go rip that up and start again. We're saying, perhaps we can put some measurement and control across those data assets that are either being consumed or produced by these pipelines, to help you start the journey of understanding where the challenges may be in your data readiness journey.
Yeah, and I think ultimately with the cloud native aspect of what QlikTime Cloud can kind of bring to the table as well, means that it's not as expensive to be able to go and take that plunge as other systems where you've got a big infrastructure around it. So you've got the lightweight aspect of a cloud system, but with the grunt of obviously Qlik paying for all that expensive infrastructure that sits in the background.
But also the flexibility around where workloads operate, right? So again,
Yeah,
people are very sensitive right now around, where's my cost of ownership really happening within my platform. And so within Qlik, we offer, different ways in which that compute and processing can be performed, whether you want that to be done, within the Qlik infrastructure, or whether you want to use what we call push down capabilities and have that compute pushed down into, SQL platforms, Spark platforms, or whatever it may be, where you have already established an operational model and a cost model that is working for you.
yeah. There's a question here which is an interesting one. What do you think of the three things that people should prioritize to get to a better position? From my perspective, I think that we often see that this kind of project gets owned by maybe a technical team or a semi-technical team in terms of analysts or things like that. So maybe an analytic performance team or something. One of the big problems there is that those people aren't always really adept at engaging with their own business. I think that this is what we see as being a really big benefit of working with an organization like ourselves, is that being able to go and speak the language of other people in that organization is really important, because the first thing that I would always prioritize is know your business, know your goals, know the challenges. Second is be able to go and understand how a project like this can really fulfill those things, because look, this isn't free. We've got to understand that doing this is better than not doing it or doing something else. So how do we make that case? One of the things that we're very adept at is being able to go and work with teams to build out that business case, but do it realistically. So not to be able to just go and say, first of all, that's the cost. Now, how do we justify it? It's got to be that challenge of what is it that we're trying to solve? How can we go and do this? It's got to be solution first, technology next. How do we solve this? And go, okay, how can the technology then overlay to go and help us do that? So I think they're the two bits is do understand, then secondly is then do that planning. And then the third bit is talk to people. You've got to go and get a perspective that sits outside of your organization, because otherwise it's that old trope of we've always done it this way, and that's never going to work. This is too fast a moving environment to not speak. And that's speak to partners, speak to vendors, speak to competitors, go to the events and really speak to people, because if nothing else, you will learn another perspective. And I think that inspires a lot of thought and challenge about how you go about this.
And just to
Darren,
reiterate that, yeah. So just to reiterate that, I think alignment is one of the biggest challenges
yeah,
that organizations face, right? So, we get approached all the time, by somebody wanting to do an AI project. But the people who are contacting us are the people who are told to do an AI project, right? These are the
yeah,
doers, not necessarily the people who have the need. And so the idea here is to, absolutely acknowledge that there's a need, but actually, try and have a reverse conversation here to understand, well, you're the doers, who's asking you to do, who cares, who's the sponsor, what's the outcome, because without that alignment, typically we get into a a tech fest of interesting things. Let's be honest, a lot of this capability is very interesting, but actually misaligned with the business need and business outcome. And that's why I think we're seeing so much challenges around AI delivering value, because it can become a science project for the technologists as opposed to a value project for the business.
Agreed. Yeah. We're going to have to close it down now, but thank you very much for everyone for attending. Continue the conversation. Email us, get in contact with us. Love to be able to go and talk about the things that we've covered here. And yeah, big thanks for Darren.
Thanks very much, and speak to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.